Hello everyone, it's Trev Not Found. So recently I was just looking at my recent, well I guess not so recent, but my last OBS tutorial and noticed there was a lot of flaws in that video. And so I'd like to go over a couple of those today and explain some of the things that I said wrong and some of the things that you guys should do. And I've learned a lot more about the way YouTube works, the way streaming services work, all that fun stuff. So let's cut the talking and let's jump right into that. So first you'll have your starting OBS screen. The first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to add a source. So you would right click here and you would add anything. So you could add a display capture, which would capture your entire display. You can add a game capture, all that stuff. And so there's a bunch of stuff you can do. So Droid Canada OBS is something that's not normally there. This stuff is not normally there. This is stuff that I have installed, which is, they're all stuff that's like add-ons and stuff. So that's besides the point. Once you add your scenes or your sources into your scenes, you can add multiple. You can set up hotkeys. I actually have mine set to my numpad, which is really handy. And now we want to go into the settings. So in the settings, on general, you don't really need to do anything here. There's like source alignment, snapping, stuff like that you really don't need to do. That's all personal stuff. That's up to you. Stream. So this is where you would input your stream key and you can connect your Twitch account. And I believe, yeah, so you can only do it with Twitch because Twitch has integration with OBS. So you can connect it and then you can get like little chat stuff on the sides and stuff like that. It's really cool. So you can either use stream key or connect account, or if you're doing YouTube, you put in your stream key, stuff like that. Then we're going to go over to output. So output, this is where a lot of the stuff happens. So first thing you want to do is you want to go into output mode and click advanced. This is very, very important. So for streaming, if you're going to be streaming to Twitch or I believe anything else besides YouTube, you want to set your encoder to NVIDIA NVENC, and then you want to go down to rate control. Make sure it's on CBR because you don't want it fluctuating. For Twitch and Facebook, and I think that's about it, you want 6,000. So you would set this to 6,000. And then you want to set your keyframe interval to 2. It really doesn't make a huge difference between 0 and 2, but I just set it to 2 and it just works. Now for your preset, if you have a 1660 or anything that has a Turing architecture or Ampere now with the 3000 series, if you have anything with basically, I believe the 1650 Super has it, but don't quote me on that, but I know the 1660 has it and everything up from there has it. So if you have anything like that, you can set it to quality, max quality, or low latency quality. All those will run perfectly. I am able to record in I have a 1660 Ti. I'm able to record in 4K, really, really high quality on max quality, and it uses about 50% of my encoder, and it doesn't touch any other part of my system really. So it's very, very good. But if you have anything that's like a 10 series or even below that, then you might want to go with just quality or performance. If you are having encoding or rendering lag or encoding lag, that's going to be where you want to turn down. So you're going to have to stop your recording or stop your streaming and turn this down to performance or max performance if it's even worse. And then low latency, it's lower latency for the frame rendering, so it's not a huge difference, but if you want the lowest amount of latency to your viewers, then you can do that if you're streaming. So now we want to set the profile to high because high is the best thing to be setting it to for OBS. I'm not too certain why, but it works the best that way. So we set it to high. Look ahead, you can just keep off Psycho Visual tuning. You can leave that on. GPU, don't worry about that. And the only reason you'd have to worry about that is if you have 2 GPUs, but I'm betting most of you won't. So we'll just move right down to max B frames, which we want to set to 2. If you are doing very low motion, like old arcade games or stuff like that on an emulator or anything like that, then I would set it to 4, but 2 is really going to work best for everything. If you are going to be streaming to YouTube, then what I would recommend is setting your bitrate to 13,000. Now this is only if your internet can handle it. If you have something like Xfinity or something like that that tend to have, or like Comcast that tend to have fairly low upload speeds, then maybe not. but I would check and run a speed test, and basically the common rule is you want your bitrate to be half, if not like 60% of your max upload on your network. So I have decent internet. I get like 35, 40 up, so 13,000 is good for me, and it gives a really good quality. And this only will work for YouTube because Twitch and Facebook do not go over 6,000. Twitch, it will go over 6,000 if you're a partner, but partners not easy to get. So for YouTube, go with 13,000. For anything else, go with 6,000. And the cool thing about YouTube, that is a really cool way to get to getting a better quality video or better quality stream, you would want to record at 1440p or above. So if you have 1080p, you can actually set this to 1080p, and you can set this to 1440, and you want to set this to 36, and that will give the best quality on YouTube. And I wish I knew that in the past, because my YouTube videos were not very good quality. And it sets it to a VP9 codec, which looks way better than AVC. And so inside of output, the reason that I have mine to 13,000 is if we go to YouTube and how you would normally have your default stream key, if you want to get better quality video with sacrificing by a couple of seconds of latency, then I would set this to create a new stream key, which you will add a name, add a description, so I can blah, 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 set this to RTMP, and turn on manual settings. So this, you can even do 4K, which is really cool. So I have mine at 1440p, which the max you can do is 13 megabits per second, which is what I have. And definitely turn on the 60 FPS option. Then you can create. I'm not going to create this because I already have one. So with default stream key, my first stream that I ever did, I tried bumping the bitrate, I tried to do everything I could, and didn't realize that this is what you had to do. This is very, very important, because I could not find this for the life of me, and finally found a video that talked about it. This is super important. So with the default stream key, it is defaulting to 1080p, which you can do ultra low latency if you have your bitrate set to 6,000 kilobits per second. Then with 1440p, you can only set it to low latency because ultra low latency is not supported, which kind of sucks, but that's just the way YouTube works, because if it was ultra low latency, everyone would have to have really fast internet connections, which is not very common. So set it to 1440p and low latency if that is what you want. Now with unlist live replay once stream ends, this will unlist your video after it ends, but for me, I like to leave this off because I want my videos to be viewable as soon as my stream is over. And then up here, you can edit your stuff. You can change the category, the game, privacy, monetization, all that stuff. Once you start streaming, a graph will show up and you'll have like your viewer count and stuff like that. So that's the basics of what you need to know about YouTube streaming. You also want to make sure that you copy your 1440p stream key into your OBS, because if you don't, and you copied the one from the default stream key, then it is going to be the wrong one and it is not going to work. So now we're going to go into recording. So recording is going to be, helpful for making videos and doing stuff like that, making tutorials like what I'm doing right now. But inside of the recording path, you want to set this to wherever you want your videos stored. Type, just set it to standard. This is the easiest way to do it, and it's very simple. So it's sort of simple, and that's what we're going to be using today. So we're going to set the recording format to MKV. The reason we're doing this is because if your recording fails, which I personally have never had happen, but MKV I have never had issues with. The only thing you got to do is afterwards you have to remix it, which if you don't want to do that, all that does is it basically converts the MKV file to an MP4, and that will use up your hard drive or SSD, and it will max it out to its max read and write speed. So if you don't want to do that, then set this to MP4. But it is possible if see right here, it says recording saved to MP4 MOV will be unrecoverable if the file cannot be finalized. It says power losses, anything like that. And so if you want to record multiple audio tracks, consider using MKV and remix the recording to MP4 MOV after it is finished. That's what I do. It works the best. Audio tracks are very important for recording. For streaming, you're just going to be using one audio track. So for streaming, we just have audio track number 1 selected. So recording, just select the recording path you want to put the file to. Then, if you are going to be recording while you are streaming, then I would suggest using Ustream encoder, but if you do have a beefy enough graphics card, then set this to NVENC, which would be the same as streaming. And now we go down to the fun part. So the best one that I think to use is CQP. And now I said this in the last video, but the part I got wrong was the CQ level. It really does not make that big of a difference the lower you go. I've seen very few tutorials that talk about CQP, and there's some people that put it down to like 15, and I've put it down to like 22 and recorded Far Cry 5 in 1440p for like 20 minutes, and I ended up with like a 25 gigabyte file. It was a lot. So what I recommend is for 1080p, the max, which is 30, is plenty. You will not need any more than that. YouTube will compress the hell out of it. So just set it to 30 and you'll be fine. But if you're going to be doing like zooming in and any sort of other fun editing, or I don't know, whatever you want to do, then I would suggest setting it to 27. And the reason for that is it gives a little bit more sharpness. It is better, but really anything below that, all you're doing is going to max out your SSD or hard drive faster. So even for 4K, I've recorded 4K at 27 CQ level and posted it to YouTube, and you cannot really see any artifacting. It's plenty. And then preset, if that's going to work the same way for streaming, if you have touring or, you know, better like Ampere, then quality and max quality are going to be the best. I would suggest max quality, but if your encoder, which would be the little chip on the graphics card of touring or newer, cannot handle it, then set it down to quality or performance or max performance if it's really not good. So I would suggest max quality because you're going to get obviously max quality that you can get out of it. Keyframe intervals set to 2. Look ahead and psychovisually tuning, just leave that normal and leave GPU and max B frames normal. Max B frame set at 2. So CQ level 27 if you want really high recordings. If really you're going to be doing anything above 1440p, I think still 1440p at 30 at CQ 30 would still be perfectly fine. But like I said, if you want to zoom in or you want to get more detail, or you're like me and you're kind of a detail nerd, or I guess whatever you want to call it, set it to 27 and you'll be good, even 4K. So now we are going to move on to audio. So you have multiple tracks and each track will record, and then you can edit that in DaVinci Resolve or Adobe Premiere, anything that you want to use. So for recording, you would want to use basically from track 2 to track 6, because streaming is going to be on track 1. Now, streaming, this isn't really going to make a huge difference. 160 is the lowest I would go. So for YouTube, they recommend a bitrate of 160 or 192. I can't remember, but you can look that up. It's pretty easy. I have it set to 160, I believe, and that's what they want for YouTube. So for Twitch, I believe you can go as high as you want. You really won't hear a difference. So for track 2 to track 6, just set this to the highest, which is 32. Also, if you hover your mouse over it and scroll down, you can easily set all that. And now it's all at 320. This will give the best audio quality that you can get and just holds the most amount of data. Replay buffer is a separate thing. That's for like letting it record in the background, then you save a clip, kind of like how NVIDIA Shadowplay works. Then audio. So this is where you're going to set your desktop audio and possibly desktop audio too. So I have a mixer and I use Voicemeeter Banana for my streaming because I can select my game and Discord and put them into 2 audio tracks on my OBS. So when I do that, I have desktop audio, I have Voicemeeter input as desktop audio 1 and desktop audio 2 aux input. So they will show up like this and they will show up like this, and that's how they'll show up. And then your mic, it's for streaming. I would recommend doing it inside of Sources, because in Sources you can, for your starting soon screen, you cannot have your mic turned on and it won't be in there. And then when you switch over to your talk screen or anything else, your mic will be there. So you don't have to worry about muting it, and kind of how Mark does where he forgets to unmute his stuff. So you don't have to worry about that. So I would recommend setting this in your Sources. If there is anything else you want to set in here, like virtual audio cable or anything like that, then set it in here. But anything outside of main desktop or music or anything like that, I would just do inside of Sources. Even music you can do in there. So decay rate, rate, peak meter type, just keep all this normal. Sample rate 48 kilohertz, and channel stereo, just leave that where it normally, I think it defaults to 44.1 kilohertz, but put it at 48 kilohertz because that's just better quality. Now let's move over to video. Video is where your canvas resolution, all the resolution stuff and frame rate's going to be. So for your base canvas resolution, you want this to be the resolution of your monitor that you are going to be streaming on. So when the game's going to be on, that's what you want it to be. So my monitor is 2560X, so you put the letter X in there, and sometimes it'll even autofill it to 1440 when you just hit tab. And then your output scaled resolution is what you want to be streaming or recording at. Now the best thing to do if you want to record at a higher resolution than what you're streaming at would be to do it in the output. So for streaming, so you inside of video, you would set this to whatever you want to record at, and then inside of output, you would go to streaming and rescale the output here to, say you want to stream at 720, but you want to record at 1080, you would set this to 720 and this to 1080. So 1920 by 1080 or 1280 by 720. So for me, I stream in 1440 and record in 1440. So I just set this to 2560 x 1440. Now the downscale filter, you only really need to change this if you are scaling. So if you're upscaling or if you are downscaling. So if I'm going from 1440 to 720, which is a perfect scale, which is recommended, but honestly on Twitch or anything, if you go from 1080 to 720, it's barely noticeable because of the compression and everything. So just leave it at bicubic. If you're scaling, I would recommend setting it to whatever the way you say that. So 36 samples, that's what I would recommend. Gives the best sharpness and scales the best. Then your common FPS values should be set to 60. Now, if you're doing, say, talk shows or I don't know, whatever else, that all your stuff's at 30 FPS, then set it to 30 because it will be less strain on your system and it will look clearer because you need less bitrate for less frame rate. So just set it to 60 for games or pretty much anything besides like really specific stuff. Hotkeys is whatever you're going to, studio mode, transition, any of that stuff that you want to set up. Now advanced, process priority set to high. I believe this should all be the same. Color space, I would set to 709 instead of 601. It gives a little bit better color, and keep color range at partial because not all displays can display full and some things will look really, really bright or really, really dark and be not visible. And if we move down to recording, this is a bunch of stuff where it'll list what it needs to put in the recording name. So this is like the year, the minute, the hour, and all that fun stuff. So in between stuff, you need to put a hyphen, I believe, and then I could put in live hyphen stream. And then it will put that after the file name, which is handy for, to pick out which stuff is your live stream, which stuff is your normal recording, stuff like that. Overwrite, if file exists, I would not do because if you do that, it won't give you a warning, I think. Automatically remix to MP4 is good if you forget to remix the MKV file to MP4. That I will show you how to do in just a minute. So if you do this every time you stop a recording, it will automatically do it, which it will kind of freeze OBS, which kind of sucks, but it helps you not forget. Then down here, we go down network, all this stuff I really wouldn't touch. I would enable browser source hardware acceleration if it already isn't. Automatically reconnect, what I would do with this is set this to 2 seconds and set this to the max, which is whatever that number is. And what that'll do is, say you have something weird happen with your internet, every 2 seconds it will try to reconnect, and it'll try to reconnect this many times every 2 seconds, or not this many times every 2 seconds, but that many times, maximum retries, which is really good for if you have like a quick shut off or something like that, then that will help. Now that we got out of the settings, we can hit apply and okay. So you can see our desktop audio showed up and FPS is now 60. And up here where it says Stream Elements, this is actually a add-on that you can download. Stream Elements is really helpful. It gives you docs and stuff like that for YouTube or Twitch. If you connect your account, like I showed you a little bit ago, to Twitch, it will automatically show up here where you'll have your, I believe, your chat and then you will have your little follower stuff like that over here. Up here where it says file, you can remix recordings. You can show recordings, which will show you where your recordings have been stored, and you can remix those. So when you click this, you would click here, and then it would bring up your file explorer, and you would select a file, and the only ones that will show up are MKV, or I think it's just MKV, and then you can add multiple, and then you can just click remix, and it will go through it, and it'll use your disk and stuff like that, and you'll go through. So you can reset your stats. So for here, this is very, very important. So if you have a microphone selected, so we have an audio input capture, and I run my mic through Voicemeeter. So if I put it on the auxiliary output, I can hit OK, and see now my mic shows up here. So if I right click on the audio mixer, I can go down to advanced audio properties. So here you can audio monitor or do anything like that. So it would monitor an output, which you would change that device in settings in audio, and right here you would change the monitoring device to whatever you want it to monitor to, so you can hear it back. So right click advanced audio properties and go here. So click this, and then that'll show every single audio device in all of your sources, not just the ones that are active. So for desktop audio, say that's your gain. Then for desktop audio 2, that's Discord. And for your audio input capture, that is your mic. I think is the best way to do is leave everything on track 1. Everything needs to be on track 1, because that is what you're streaming if you are streaming. Now, I would still recommend this if you are recording, just in case something else gets screwed up. You can still have at least track 1, but you won't be able to edit individual stuff. So for desktop audio, I would leave it checked on 2 and uncheck everything else. Desktop audio 2, uncheck 2, uncheck everything else, and leave 3. Then for your mic, uncheck 2, 3, leave 4, and 5, 6. So what will happen is when you record, everything will be on track 1. So when you pull this in your editing software, you have multiple tracks, and everything will be on there, but you won't be able to edit them individually. So if you do 2 separate tracks, you can change the volume of your desktop audio up and down, then you can change the volume of your Discord up and down, or whatever you're using, and then you can change the levels of your microphone, or even add effects if you want to. So if you only need to record 4 tracks, then you go into settings and you go to output, you go to recording, and you select 4 tracks. This is very important because I believe it's defaulted to 1. It only shows up on 1, and you want to make sure you get all those so that you can actually change them. So that is very, very important for editing. And so you want to leave everything on track 1 if you are streaming, and you make sure that track 1 is selected for streaming. Now we can go over to scenes. You can add, and you can add another scene. So if I want this to be, say, display capture, I can add this and see it captures my display. Another thing you can do is, this is very helpful for resources, so see, this is my monitor, and you can capture or not capture the cursor. I'd like to capture it, and so okay. And what's really good if you have not a great computer, mainly for the CPU, if you don't have a great CPU, right click and disable preview. So uncheck enable preview. That will disable it and give you way more CPU horsepower. And you can also go into settings, go to hotkeys, and go down to enable and disable preview, so you can set a hotkey for that. If you want to like quickly, look over or whatever and see it, then you can. Now you can go up to profile, which has a bunch of different stuff. So this is some of my stuff here. Profile is all your settings. So your recording settings, your whatever you have in there, that is your profile. Your scene selection, that is all of your scenes. So all your sources, your scenes, and your audio, I believe, is all saved there. Now, if you want to change your profile from, say, CQP 25 or to CQP 30, but keep the same scene, you can do that. So I have a profile for recording my camera, and for YouTube streaming. And so I also have a scene for face cam, recording, and streaming. So that is mine, and it makes it really easy to switch in between stuff. And there's another really cool feature of OBS where you can actually open it more than once. So currently I have my desktop recording, and I also have my face cam recording on 2 different instances of OBS, which is sweet. And so the cool thing about that is I can have 2 separate files. So if I want to shrink and like zoom in my camera or whatever, I can do that in a recording. That is not what you would want to do for streaming, but for recording, that would be a good option if you have the computer muscle to do that. So I actually have 3 instances of OBS open right now, which gives me really easy access to change any settings in here without disrupting my recording. So to get the little stream elements thing up here, you actually need to go to stream elements themselves. You need to sign in with either your YouTube or your Twitch account. And then you can go in there. There are free scenes and little stuff that you can put in your streams, like animations and face cam borders and stuff like that. And that you can actually download a little add-on that will plug into OBS. And it's obs.live, I believe it's called. And then it can give you your OBS Live docs, so activity feed and chat, stuff like that. And so that gives you really cool stuff. And then you can actually, get some fun camera borders, or show all your recent followers and stuff like that. So we're going to enable the preview because I want to have it back. And I think that is covering it all. I cannot think of anything else that I have missed. If there is anything I've missed, let me know in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like. It really helps. And subscribe because it's free, and why not? So I think I have got everything, and I hope that this was helpful, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.